I love V10s. Wow. Now, if someone were to give you a very new and very, very blue 911 Turbo S for a few days, looks like someone has the same idea of us. Someone were to give you a 911 Turbo S for a few days, you'd want to bring it somewhere pretty good to drive. Hence being in beautiful, scenic, lovely North Wales. It's where a lot of people come to drive their cars because there's some great driving roads here, and actually the weather's quite good. See what I mean? Lots of people have the same idea. This latest Gen 2 991 Turbo S really is kind of all things really is all things to all people. It's fast, it's great to drive, pretty practical, it's fair. Let's go for a drive, shall we? So yeah, while 911 Turbo S is fairly predictable and almost ubiquitous as kind of super sports cars go, there's very, very good reason for that. There's very, very good reason why there's been one around for the past, 40 years or so. It's because there's so much in one car, odd though that may sound. It can just sort of do everything you need it to do. So you can just plonk it into automatic, drive along like a 911, really. You can fit very small children in the back if you want. You can put shopping in the front. You can get decent fuel consumption. You can just drive along quietly and comfortably, just like a 911, and blend in as well. Obviously, you may not blend in if you have your Turbo S in Miami blue, but in black or silver or blue or whatever, you can blend in, and for some people that's quite appealing. Obviously, the other side of a 911 Turbo S is just this absurd tarmac shredding monster of a thing that just, whatever you've been in beforehand, is just so fast. Kind of short of a Veyron, I think, is going to feel slow compared to this. Porsche say 580 horsepower. I think that's a very conservative 580 horsepower. But just at all speeds, any gear, any revs, you just fly, absolutely fly. So you'll probably be aware of the host of technology you get in a Turbo S nowadays. There's PDCC dampers, PDK gearbox, PASM, traction and stability control. There's a lot there, and it does enable you to carry just ridiculous speed across the road. And don't get me wrong, that will have considerable appeal to a lot of people. The issue is that, and I know it's going to be a familiar complaint, that it leaves you with not as much to do on the road and not as much to enjoy as you might like. I've driven a Turbo S on track and it was great, and that's the problem, is that it's only once you're on track that this car really starts to kind of come alive and feel a bit more like a 911 and feel a bit more exciting, because on the road, I think what you're ultimately left with, you marvel at the speed and you're excited by the speed, but actually something to drive, it feels a bit more like you cling on and sort of hope for the best is harsh, because you know it will deal with it, but you certainly don't feel like you are influencing much of what goes on, and that's a real shame, because once you do get it on track, there's more going on, but just to breach those limits, you can't do it on the road. It's not realistic, sadly. However, if you want your everyday, really, really, really fast supercar to be a bit more extroverted, shall we say, than a 911 Turbo, even a 911 Turbo in Miami blue, you want something that shouts about its credentials a little bit more, then Audi has an alternative, doesn't it? About a decade ago, Audi introduced the R8 to the 911 sector, rather shook it up, and what do you know, we have one right here. Alright, so if a Porsche 911 Turbo S is all about covering every base all of the time, being all cars to all people, then this R8's just engine. It's all engine. This is 5.2 litres. It revs to 8.5. And it is just amazing. It's got this insatiable appetite for revs, which is so rare again nowadays. It's just, it's intoxicating. I love it. And especially compared to the Porsche, which, yeah, is a fantastic turbo engine, but for a supercar, you want V10, don't you? You definitely want V10. It is just magnificent, and it's matched to this S-tronic dual clutch gearbox, which I think it might even be better than the Porsche. It is super sharp in its changes, especially when you have it in the more aggressive driving modes and you get really fast downshifts like that. There's a proper sense of supercar theatre that might be lacking in the Porsche. You've got noise, you've got throttle response, you've just got all the speed you could ever want. There are other elements of this R8 that are perhaps not so good. Just basic things like I'm sat too high, and in the Porsche you're sat really low and it just makes you feel more part of the car. I'm not sure the seat's all that comfy, just little things like that. And yeah, it wouldn't be a fast Audi without complaining about the steering somewhere, would it? And again, it's a super sharp chassis and a very good chassis, which we'll come on to in a second. But you just don't quite have the confidence in what the front's doing. So yeah, if the Porsche is too introverted for your supercar taste, then this, even noise aside, has got drama everywhere. Even in lead grey, it looks incredible. It's exciting and low, and in here it just makes you feel like you're in a spaceship almost. You've got the virtual cockpit, which feels a world on from anything else. And yeah, if you need extroverted supercar, within reason, it's not too over the top, but extroverted supercar, then you're certainly going to get that with the R8. Now, brakes here, like in the Porsche, are carbon ceramic, and they're good. They're really nice, actually. They respond from cold well, and there's just that nice response from the top of the pedal. So when you need little confidence dabs, as you tend to in this, because you're going pretty quickly, they're there straight away. You're not left second guessing. Yeah, it may not be cool to, but I quite like this car. I think it combines a lot of the usability side of the 911, admittedly with no rear seats, but with some proper old-fashioned supercar drama and thrill to it as well. I think it's a really, really well-sorted package. There are flaws. Porsche feels more honed, I would say. Everything's together. Whereas in this, it sometimes feels like different parts of your dynamic interface with it have been done by different people. There's not that kind of harmony that actually was there with the original car, which is odd. This just sometimes feels a bit disjointed. And then you do that and it doesn't seem to matter. Oh my goodness, what a car. However, there's an issue with the Audi, a larger issue at work, but it's the fact it is an Audi, and these are all expensive cars. You're getting on for nearly £150,000 with the Porsche and the Audi, and you'd probably like people to know you spent that money. Why not, instead of having the top of a quote-unquote regular manufacturer range, why don't you try and get in at the bottom of a bona fide supercar range? So yes, if you want a more exotic badge on your supercar for a similar sort of price, then you probably need to look at another car. And there it goes now. So yes, if you want your supercar from a quote-unquote proper supercar manufacturer, then you can get a McLaren 570 for similar-ish sort of money to the other two. Now this is more expensive because, as you may be aware, this is the PistonHeads long-term, and this is the car that Dan spec'd. And Dan, being slight diva that he can be on occasion, has got a bit over the top with the options. But fact is, a 570 GT that we have here, you can have for £155,000, which is not cheap, but it is in the ballpark of those other cars. 570 horsepower here is 580 in the Porsche. The key with this car, though, in terms of feeling different to those other two, is that it feels exciting and involving and everything you would want from a sports car at sensible speed. You don't have to be going absolutely ballistic to really, really, really enjoy this car. We'll get to that point in a second, don't get me wrong, but you can boot along and appreciate things like the visibility. You've got a really low scuttle, so you can see right across the road. You've got the glass roof, so you've got this great sense of visibility. You've got beautiful steering, really, really lovely steering. It's hydraulic still here, where it's electric in the other cars, and you just get so much sense of what the car is doing and what the road is doing. And electric systems are getting better and better, but you get in something with really well sorted hydraulic steering, and it makes you realise just how good it still is and how valuable and relevant it still is to fast cars. I really, really like it. And you've got nothing on the steering wheel either, in complete contrast to the Audi. You've got the best brakes here as well. They are gorgeous. The pedal placement as well, like spot on for left foot braking if you want to do that. Really, really lovely. And again, it's that sense of the driver being at the heart of things. To be able to enjoy it at road speeds and at road commitment levels is a worthwhile asset, I would say. On the other hand, this is still a McLaren, and if you want to go really, really, really quickly, you can definitely still do that. The chief advantage this car has over the other two in terms of going really, really fast, I know it has less power than the Porsche, but it's got a lot less weight as well. Obviously the McLaren is carbon tubbed, so you save a huge amount of weight. I know this has a bit of a disadvantage compared to an S. You've got a bit more equipment, so a bit more weight, but it's more than 100 kilograms less than the other two, and you just feel that everywhere in direction changes, in acceleration, in braking. It just feels so alert and so agile, and there's no contrived sense of that either. With the Porsche, you have the four-wheel steering trying to help out and manage that mass. In this, it's just a light, nimble, precise sports car. The Sport Series cars, as opposed to the Super Series McLarens, don't have the proactive chassis control. They don't have the fancy interlinked wheel control thing that proactive chassis control is. We've just got conventional anti-roll bars here and conventional dampers, but they do a remarkable job of keeping this car comfortable and corseting while also just delivering fantastic body control as well. It's a spooky combination of just control and comfort that is significantly better than the other two. Significantly. You think they do well, but this is just on another planet. It's just incredibly comfortable but and absorbent, but you can carry the speed. It's not like it's comfortable and you're being thrown off because the damping can't keep up or whatever. It is sublime how it manages to do that, and again helps with that sense of enjoying it at road speed, because you can drive it on a B road and appreciate what the car is doing and how good it is. You don't need a track or a dead smooth surface for it to show off what it can really do. Powertrain wise, this isn't quite as exciting as the Audi. Don't get me wrong, it's fantastically fast, but it doesn't quite have that thrill right in the upper reaches of its rev range as the Audi does. So while there are traits familiar in those other two cars from cheaper models, in this you're just thinking about more expensive cars that it's like all the time. So the way you look out on this car and the way the steering wheel is and the way you sit feels very much like a 650S to me, and that's a good thing because, well, A, feels like it's a more expensive car, but B, it's just such a well set driving position, and I'm unnecessarily tall and it suits perfectly. I absolutely love it. Okay, so we are all done in Wales for today. We need to start reaching some conclusions on these cars. The 911 Turbo S is still a fantastic car. It kind of always has been, hasn't it? If you want to take a car to a track, you want to go shopping in it, you want to commute in it, the 911 Turbo S covers off every single base so very, very well still. However, you want something more exotic and more exciting, then the R8's the car to have. That engine, that powertrain, kind of makes it worth the price on its own. It's still a good car elsewhere. I just don't think it's perhaps quite as finely resolved and honed as it should be, hanging off that engine. The winner here is a clear winner actually, by quite a long way for me. It's the McLaren 570 GT. It drives much nicer than the other cars here. I think it's more exciting to look at. It's more of an event to be in. It's the best supercar here, I think.